Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Dear Jill podcast. How are you all? It's New Year's Eve. How we're all feeling? I don't know about you, Emma, but I think New Year's Eve brings a funny feeling to a lot of us. Some people are either buzzing about the year they've had. They're so excited. Everything, they've fallen in love. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve. And then other people they just feel like the year's been a big fat failure. How are you when it comes to resolutions and things like that?
Ooh, resolutions are a no from me.
Right, you never do them.
No, because I feel like you set yourself up to do something and sometimes that thing never comes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between setting a resolution, as like I'm going to change, to setting maybe goals to hit.
Yes.
Because I think a resolution is a change of lifestyle or something that you're going to have forever.
Right.
That's a forever commitment. Where a goal or something is something that you hit and then you can get the next one. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And I think that what happens is that sometimes people can write a resolution list and they get to the end of the year and they can just think, well, that year can just go and do one because none of it happened. I didn't do any of it. By March of that year, I'd pretty much given up and I feel terrible. But what I was thinking about was that I don't think any year can ever be a write-off. I don't think there's any years in our lives that we should ever write off or think, well, that's it, they're a failure. And, you know, one of the years that really springs to mind for me is the year that I lost my partner, and I lost him very early on in the year. And I thought to myself, I remember thinking, well, this year's going to be a massive bag of shit then, isn't it? And every year from then on will be a massive bag of shit because I'm just going to be miserable and sad all the time. And there were many parts of that year that were terrible. And, you know, I was in like a lot of despair. But you know what? There were parts of that year that were also, I'm going to even say like possibly joyful. And I think that that's what I learned about things not working out at all how you want them to work out. I've learned that, that can be a bitter disappointment and it can be really, really difficult. And grief itself, you know, can pour over you and you can just feel completely overwhelmed. But within that year, I can think of two moments right now. I did a film that year. I did a comedy film called Walk Like a Panther about wrestlers. And it was ridiculous and it was gorgeous and it was brilliant. And I loved everyone I worked with. And for the 6 weeks I was on that set, I had so much fun and I laughed loads. And yeah, I had to go back to my life afterwards and be sad again. And the reality of everything hit me all over again. But I do remember thinking, all right, like it is possible to feel joy even when you're feeling really bad. I know that can be a bit of a contradiction for people, but that was my experience. And then the other thing that comes to mind is that I built a relationship with my son that year, which, you know, I was already, you know, very, very close to him, but it really deepened like our connection. And he saw me in ways that I didn't think he'd ever see me, and I didn't want him to see me like that, but that's how life was and that's how it was. And I was talking to my middle sister, Paula, one night, and she said to me, oh, do you ever watch like RuPaul's Drag Race? And I was like, no. And she was like, do you know what? She said, it's really fun. She said, I think you and Harvey might like it. She said, it's really uplifting, and the message of love and acceptance just rings through it. And I thought, oh, right, okay. So anyway, we started watching it. And so began like our love affair with RuPaul's Drag Race. And we would lie on the sofa and we'd watch every single season, every single episode. We'd have our favorite queens. And it was just like it became like a real thing for the two of us to share. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have had one of those years where you just go, bye-bye, 2024, you've been rubbish. Just, if you can, just take a moment, get a pen and paper, and just write down 10 things from that year that weren't rubbish, that you might be grateful for. And that could be as little as I had a really nice night out with my mate in March. It could be as little as that. It doesn't have to be profound, but just see if you can write 10 things about that year that you are actually grateful for, because it's so easy to write something off, to think something's been a failure. And then once you've written that, then if you are a resolution person or if you are a goals person, then go into your list for 2025. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to start that list with going, right, being really hard on ourselves. I just need to change the way I was because last year was terrible. You need to sort of go, yeah, but I've learned stuff. I've learned stuff from the things that have happened. I've learned stuff from the failures. I've come through it, and it gives you like a more positive feeling going into the next year. And I heard somebody say this, and I thought it was really good. It was a businessman, and I can't remember his name, but he said, write down 10 goals, 10 resolutions, whatever, however you want to put it, for next year. Look at the list, decide which one is the most important to you. Take that one off the list, put it on a new list, and write down 10 ways that you're going to achieve that goal. Because I think what happens is you have too many goals and resolutions. Yeah, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And then it gets to January the 14th and you're like, oh, I haven't done any of them. Doesn't matter. I'm bored now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be like that. You can choose one thing and you can focus on it. And I'm a massive believer in when you focus on one part of your life and you feel really happy with that, I think it bleeds into other parts of your life. And without even knowing it, other parts of your life get better without you having to fix them, in inverted commas. What do you reckon?
You know what? It's as if that I just did my Dear Jill, it's Emma, and it's coming to New Year and I'm feeling stressed, and you just answered everything that I would do, because I am a person that writes too many things down, then I stress about how I'm actually going to achieve them. But if I just don't write as many, and focus on how to do that.
And just look at the one that you think, what would bring me the most happiness out of all of them? It's not to ignore the other ones. The other ones will happen. But then you will get to the end of that year and you will have achieved at least one of the things on your list because you will have focused on it. I'm going to give that a try as well.
So am I. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Should I have some voice notes?
Dear Jill, my name's Tiff. The New Year's never really been something. I've never been someone to have big expectations. For me, it does feel like a failure, that it's another year and you haven't achieved what you wanted, or the only thing I did this year was survive, to be honest. But a new year for me, I don't really want to see it as expectations. I don't want to set myself anything like that. I just want to find my purpose. I feel like I'm starting from zero again and starting from scratch. The whole New Year's is really, really overwhelming. That's what my thoughts about it is. And that's my dilemma.
So Tiff, you said the only thing I've done this year is survive. So if you've had a year that's been that tough that you've been surviving, then that's not nothing. That's amazing. If you've survived a year, if you've used that word, that means that you've been through some huge, huge hurdles and situations. So never, ever do yourself down over that. Give yourself a massive pat on the back. I mean, to survive something is one of the hardest things we can do. But I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you on the expectation. And I think sometimes this fear of failure is the thing that like makes us start the next year almost feeling despondent. It's like, oh, I'm just going to go into another year and I'm just going to like feel like I failed again. But you don't have to do that. Don't have any expectation. Maybe that could be your way forward. That works for a lot of people. Just expect nothing, but stay open, curious to everything. And just see what comes your way. You never know, but I think it's really difficult when you've had a really traumatic and difficult time and you sort of just feel like you're clinging on for dear life. And maybe this next year for you is just like, just make it as easy as possible. Just take it gentle, keep it simple. Just wake up every day and say, okay, day, what you got for me today? And that's enough. That is more than enough. We get bombarded on social media, on everything we turn our heads to about, you got to write this and you got to have a financial list and you got to make sure you got the perfect pension and you got to make sure that you got like stocks and shares. And you're like, oh, wow, this is so overwhelming. I just feel like I'm being talked at from all angles here. But that's just not the truth. It doesn't have to be like that. So give yourself this next year to just see what happens and just stay curious, stay open, and just be gentle. Be gentle with yourself because it sounds like you've had a tough time. But thanks for leaving a voice note, Tiff.
Dear Jill, it's Bobby, and I just wanted to ask some advice on moving to a new city far away from your partner and your friends and all of your family, and how you would get settled into that city, how you would go about making new friends, making new experiences, because I find during the week quite easy because I'm at work all the time. By the time I get home, I'm too tired anyway, so I normally just have a cup of tea and head to bed. But on the weekends, I find it quite difficult because I find myself being quite lonely. And I wondered what advice you would have to someone on making new friends and getting out there whilst being in a new city and trying to create a new sort of life for yourself, I guess. Thank you.
Bobby, I mean, it's so courageous when people move away from their family and their friends and their partner. It's such a courageous and brave thing to do. So, like, well done you for doing it. Do you know what? I think that the best way to do that, the best way to make friends in a new city is to work out the things that make you feel alive, make you feel excited, all the things that you're interested in. And whatever that is, see if there's like classes or groups that are also interested in that type of thing. If pottery is your thing, go to some pottery classes. If an art gallery is your thing, don't just go to the art gallery to look at some art, because then you'll be on your own and you might not talk to people. See what the art gallery offers. They might have like a membership club. They might have a setup where strangers just get together and they get taken around the gallery for like specific talks and things like that. But what you want to try and do is meet people that also have your interests, because then you've got an instant connection with that. And then from that, might spawn like some great friendships. But good luck with it. And like I say, it's really brave. But again, and sometimes, actually, I heard somebody say this the other day, about how do I make friends? And apparently they said it like in this theatre. Someone was giving a speech and this guy put his hand up and said, how can I make friends? And the person who was giving the speech said, well, actually, by doing exactly what you've just done, by just asking the question. So even by you just saying this out loud, I think you're like one step closer to being able to do it, because I think people get really embarrassed about being lonely and about not having any friends. And people think, oh, I can't say, how do I make friends? That makes me sound like sad and like a loser. I don't think it does at all. I think it sounds like really empowering to say to someone, I'm in a new city. Go on like a social media platform. I've just arrived in a new city. I don't really know anyone. This is the kind of things I'm interested in. If anybody's interested in the same thing, I'd love to meet up for a coffee or hang out. I think now more than ever, we'll have so many different ways to connect that you're in a really, really good place to be able to forge ahead and make a new life for yourself. But good luck with it all.
Jill, have you ever had to not start fresh, but be in, everyone's got a new situation. This podcast is new, everything's new. So have you ever been in a situation where you new to everything and maybe felt a bit, oh, what am I doing here?
I mean, when I was 18, I went to London not knowing anyone. And I just, I landed there and went to drama school. Obviously, I had a place to go to every day, a bit like Bobby, she can go to work. But then at the weekends, it's not it's not just a given that you're going to hang out with everyone. And the weird thing about drama school as well is that it's not like uni. So it's not like everyone's on the same campus and they're all going for like cheap drinks, at wherever. London is so sprawling. Everybody lived in different places. It felt like it was just not always easy to like build those friendships. But I met a girl who was in a different class and she had literally put a notice up on the board, I'm looking for somewhere to live. And I responded to that and went, I'm looking for somewhere to live. Then we both decided we needed a third person because it would be cheaper. We met another girl from a different year. And that's, it was that basic and that simple. But you have to say the words, don't you? You have to say, I'm looking for someone to live with, or I'm looking for someone to make friends with. Otherwise, we can't read each other's minds. And I think like Bobby's just like, she sounds plucky. She sounds like the type of person that she'll be able to do that and just get along. And, I think people respond to that really well. I don't think it is in any way sad or loserish, not from my point of view. I think it's lovely when people say, I'm looking to like make new friends. I'm like, oh, cool.
But also the fact that if someone is listening now and thinking, maybe I don't sound like Bobby, I don't sound like you, I'm very much an introvert.
Yes.
How do they tackle that?
I would also say that if I was writing a post or a letter, I'm like, I'm kind of shy. I'm a bit of an introvert, but that doesn't mean to say I don't love company and I don't love friends. It's just, this is really hard for me. So, this is my number or this is my Instagram page or however, just reach out. And I just think the more honest you can be about who you are and what you need, I think that you'll just be amazed at how people respond to honesty. I would rather respond to that message than somebody going, hey, I'm in a new city. I'm 18 years old and I love skiing. I'd be like, oh, okay.
Okay, I don't like skiing.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just everyone knows what it feels like to feel a bit lonely, don't we?
I think we've all been in new situations where you do have to put I'm a big girl now, or I feel like a small girl, but I'm doing big things.
Yeah. And not feel like it's in any way a sort of judgment on who you are because you don't have friends. It's like, well, yeah, because you're in a brand new place. You don't just bring people with you. Imagine that. Just bringing your set of mates everywhere you went.
They'd soon go away, I tell you. They'd soon be like, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
Right, let's have our next one from Molly.
Dear Jill, looking for advice. My name is Molly and me and my husband had a huge falling out and he stayed out all night. So suffice to say, I packed his bags and asked him to go and stay in a hotel or with his mum until I'd calmed down. He then decided to stay away for longer than the night that I asked him. During that time, he then messaged my friend and asked if he could bunk at her house, to which she said, yes, absolutely, that's no problem, works for me, I'm going on holiday. They organised this between themselves and off he went to stay at hers. My question or my quandary is, the anger has subsided, but he told me that he was going to stay there. She didn't tell me. She didn't contact me to say how I was. She didn't make no attempt to find out what had happened. And I didn't find out he was staying there till he told me. And then when I phoned her, she didn't answer. I feel like a friend would have messaged me to see if I was okay before making the decision, or Ian's asked to stay, is that okay? Given the fact that when she went through her rough divorce, I was on her side and by her side come day or night. So yeah, I'm still a bit seething from it. I don't quite know whether I'm overreacting, but any help would be appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, Molly, well, it sounds like your marriage is definitely in some trouble there and that you're having real difficulty communicating between yourself and your husband. But somehow you've taken the attention off that subject and you've moved it over to being annoyed with your friend. Now, I can see why you're annoyed with your friend. I don't think that's the biggest problem here. I think your priority is sorting things out with your husband. So if I was you, just my opinion, but if I was you, I would definitely want to work out the situation with my relationship and whether that was going to move forward, whether it had a future, why it broke down in communication, why you felt like he had to leave and why he felt like he had to stay away for longer. I'd really want to sort that out before I then approached my friend and said, listen, that hurt me and these are the reasons why. I think sometimes like it's a bit of a natural reaction to have a problem that we're really, really worried about and then slightly divert our attention to something else, because it's almost like don't stare at the monster. Like that one is too scary. So I'm going to put my attention on this instead. So I feel like you could perhaps be doing that a little bit. I really think the friend situation is secondary to your relationship. So if I was you, I would really just try and work on that first. Try and find a place of understanding that you're both happy with. And then once you know where that is and what that is, then I think you could chat to your friend. But I hope that's helpful. And I do understand where you're coming from. I think just don't take your eyes off the ball.
Dear Jill, my dilemma for you is whether or not people deserve a second chance. The specifics are that I am 36 and I was in foster care from the age of 10 because of things that Mum did and Mum allowed to happen. And I haven't really had contact since, but recently she's tried to get back in contact and I don't know whether that's a good idea or not. So yeah, that's my dilemma for you.
What was her name, Emma?
It was Katie.
Katie, this is really tricky because I obviously don't know, the information about what went on with yourself and your mum and what that relationship consists of. Just in general terms, do people deserve a second chance? I think people, yeah, they can make mistakes and they can be sorry for that, and relationships can be renewed and restored. But I think it really, really depends on what happened beforehand. And I think it very much depends on whether the person that is seeking to reconnect with you, whether they have taken accountability or taken responsibility for how that relationship ended and what exactly happened there. Listen to yourself, listen to your heart, listen to your head. If you want to have a meeting with her and see what she has to say, fair enough, but that doesn't mean to say then you have to start something up. But it is tricky, like I say, because I don't really know all of the information there. But just keep listening to yourself and just make sure you keep your boundaries and you know what is acceptable for you and what isn't. And I think you'll be good. Hi, Tyler.
Hello, you all right?
Yes, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. What's going on?
Well, I'm just thinking about January coming up, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you know how it's like, well, January's very much like a long month. It feels like it goes on twice as long as all the others. You've usually spent all your money over Christmas and New Year, and it's just a bit of a slog to get through. The weather's bad. I could go on. And I'm thinking, how do we make January a little bit better?
Okay. Well, what do you like doing?
Listening to music, going to concerts, just having time with my friends, really, filling up time, just having fun.
Then do that. Keep January as simple as that. Just say to yourself, because I think probably what I'm hearing really is underneath it all, there's maybe a little bit of anxiety or fear about, it's another year and what's that going to bring? And that, January just feels like, you know, like I should be being really productive and I should be sort of all like, come on, let's kick 2025 in the face and all that rubbish. But for you, maybe you need your Januaries to be quiet and calm and just really simple. Like just do all the things you love to do. Listen to all the music that you love. Go to concerts. Have like really quality time with your friends where you're just going for like walks or you just have a nice breakfasts together. And don't tell yourself that January has to be anything other than what you want it to be. It's just this mad pressure we put on ourselves about New Year's and what they should mean and how we should be. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to put that pressure on yourself. You can let it go and you can just be who you are. And maybe February is your January.
I think it might be. It's nice and short as well, isn't it? So
there you see, practical, very practical. But yeah, no, I hope just try and reclaim January for yourself.
Sounds good.
Cheers.
I like what you said there about like have the January you want.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with like saying, you know what, I'm gonna have a quiet one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna focus on things.
Yeah.
Too
So
much.
ingrained in us, isn't it? There's such a sort of a silent pressure that everything has to be like, right, you've got to get it together, girl. You better make 2025 the most productive year you've ever had. And you better do all those things that you've never. I mean, the voices in your head can really, really give you a hard time. And I honestly think that's why people hate January. I mean, I know people say, oh, well, you know, it's after Christmas and it feels like, oh, I'm back at work and all of that. But there's just a huge amount of pressure that, you know, January should be the most productive and you should be like setting your goals and sticking to those goals. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but it's something ridiculous. Like by January the 22nd, most people have just sacked everything off. But what if you just didn't start anything in the first place? What if you gave yourself time to just thaw out a bit? And by February, March, spring is springing. The eggs are hatching.
Oh.
And then you're coming out like a beautiful flower going, yeah, I'm ready now. Ready to take on the world. No, you don't have to take on the world ever. You don't have to do that. But do you know what I mean? It's like this idea of like go. You're like, oh, please, just like steady on a bit. So I totally get where he's coming from.
I also think you get so caught up of like, we've got to finish the year. We've got to, you know, turn that page when really, in reality, you just open another calendar. It's not really anything.
It's not really anything. You're absolutely right. It's like we were given this timeline, this calendar. And like you say, it's just such a, I suppose it's just this feeling of like, every year matters. Each year counts. You're getting older every year. There's all these messages that you get given all the time. And it's not about like just saying, oh, just ignore everything. It's just about saying, if that's not how you're feeling this year, just allow yourself to just have the year that you fancy having then. It's I think it's a lot of messaging, do you, that we get from like externally.
Yeah. That being said, though, we'll wrap this up. But what are you writing in your diary?
Ooh, should I say this? So I have a real desire to be more involved in making television and not just being in it. So one of my goals is to move further towards being able to do that, getting myself in a position where I want to start possibly producing. And I mean, I write a little bit, but I would probably like to write more. So I've always been interested in that side of things. I've always wanted to be involved in a project from literally like the seed up, just from the idea upwards. So that's something that would be a really big goal of mine. And I wouldn't expect in any way to have achieved it by the end of the year. But what I would say to myself is, hopefully by the end of 2025, you're closer to being in that position than you were at the end of 2024. So I think that's a bit more realistic for myself anyway. What about you?
Ooh, I don't know just yet. That's a real sit down in front of a notebook and ponder situation. And it is a nice time to reflect on the year. Not to say, you know, I've had a bad one or I've had a shocker, but do pick the nice things out.
Definitely pick the nice things out. Being grateful for stuff is really powerful. I do a gratitude list every single night. I write down the 10 things that I'm grateful for about my day, and I send it to 3 people, and those 3 people send it back to me.
Do you really?
Yeah, so we share a gratitude. So that's how I end every single day. And if I forget, I will then wake up first thing in the morning and say, last night I was grateful for, and I will list the 10 things.
That's a lovely idea.
It's really powerful. And do you know what? Is amazing? Because you don't think, this is what's amazing about gratitude. You get a real joy and a buzz from other people's list as well. You become more grateful because you're reading how grateful someone else is. It's ridiculously powerful. It's really kind of manifesty. Not that I'm like a massive kind of like, you know, think about having £1 million, you'll have £1 million. It's not that. I think it's like gratitude is rooted much more in a joy for life.
I was thinking, how do you get 10 things? But it could be the littlest of thing.
Honestly, it could be, I enjoyed my cup of tea. And sometimes it is that, because sometimes I'll have that attitude of like, well, today's been rubbish. But then it's amazing, because then I can write things like, I'm safe, or I have enough. It doesn't have to be that these amazing high energy things have happened to you. It can just be like, I enjoyed sitting on the settee with my son. But those are things that when you write them down, you think, I really am grateful for that. But they can pass you by if you don't
write them
see
down.
them in black and white.
I like that idea. That's maybe something
You can
I'll
have
take.
that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Was in your 2024 to-do list this podcast?
I think it was, and I don't know whether there's a list in one of my notebooks but I think I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and this is how I work. Things live in my head for quite a while, and then I'll start saying them, and then suddenly they'll be happening. So yes, I think it was living in me for a while. Yeah, and it happened. Whatever 2025 brings, we're going to be here with you all the way, every week, listening to you and what you're bringing to us and what's going on in your life. And remember, everything's welcome. It's 2025, and we'll see you next week. If you've got a dilemma or a problem, then please get in touch with us on the @DearJill Podcast Instagram page. Leave us a voice note and you might be on the show. And if we did answer one of your dilemmas today, then please call us back, because we really want to know how you're going to get on. Thank you so much, guys, and see you next week.